This is what I looked for.
Mrs. Jarvis, and this is a question I'm sure on the minds of many of the boys that went to Bishops. When did you first learn that Bishops High School was going to be co-educated, and what were your thoughts then?
Well, I wasn't afraid of co-education because I'd gone to a co-ed primary school. I had brothers, two elder brothers, and also um, I had taught at Queen's College. And but I knew that parents and students didn't want to be disturbed. Things were going well at both schools, and we communicated well. The heads, um, I had taught both. What's his name? Clarence Trotz and the chap who was the CEO, and they knew me very well. And I knew that they were doing well at Queens, and I was doing well at Bishops. And so I didn't really want to be disturbed, and I knew that parents didn't want the disturbance, nor did the students. And I know that some of the boys were quite upset when they heard they had to come over to Bishops.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you were one of them, Selwyn.
Oh, definitely so.
Yes. But anyway, I think it worked out well eventually. But, even though we sort of lightly protested, President Burnham was very adamant. It had to be. But I had thought that there were only 6 single-sex schools, and Barbados and some of the other islands had kept a few single-sex schools, and we could have kept ours, I thought. But everything happens for the best. I like to see good in every circumstance. Whatever the circumstances, there is some good hidden away somewhere.
Very true.
And so the good has come out.
But that
I'm
said,
very pleased.
Mrs. Jarvis, I can hardly imagine what an administrative, logistical, and PR nightmare it must have been for you. So tell us, if you can, how did you deal with the pushback from parents and teachers, and what was the buzz among the students?
We didn't have anybody who voluntarily wanted to move.
Ah,
They didn't want to. The parents didn't want to. The students didn't want to. And what I think Clarence was acting ahead at the time. What we had to do was go through the list, and every other student assigned for transfer. If you had an older sibling in the school, then you were exempt. You could remain at the school because your parents would pick you both up at the school. But otherwise, we just went through the list and decided every other one to go. That was the only thing to do.
all these years
Because
I never
nobody
knew.
volunteered. Nobody volunteered.
All these years I never knew. We never knew what the selection process was. Thanks for clearing that up.
Right.
Take us back
We had to find some way of doing it, and that was the only way to do it.
Mrs. Jarvis, take us back to September 1975. And we'll take a quick break after this question.
Mhm.
Take us back to September 1975 at your first co-ed school assembly and give us a glimpse into your thoughts as you were about to address us.
I had to have the hall extended to welcome the boys,
Oh,
and I'd had to have other, extra sanitary facilities installed. I told the ministry we didn't have the facilities to accept so many boys, and we had to have extra facilities, and we had to have an extended hall. So that's how the extension of the hall came, and it had to be done in time for the reopening of school. And so as I walked up, I was very pleased that the workmen, I had to be behind them, I had to be there all during the vacation to be behind them to see that they finished on time. And as I walked up, I was pleased. And as I saw the assembled school, of course, we had to have chairs. Prior to that, the girls sat on the floor. But with boys coming in, they couldn't do that any longer. So we had to have enough chairs to accommodate the assembled school. And we had the extended hall, the extended stage, and everything. And I felt happy that we were there on time. And I felt the grace of God there with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that He was with us and that He would take us through and give us success.
Thank you, Mrs. Jarvis. Before I go, if I may just read a few comments in the chat room before I take a break, sorry. Sandy Anderson said, Mrs. Jarvis, can you tell us about the decision to make bishops co-ed and how the specific boards, well, you just answered that, were selected? They seemed like the perfect fit for us at the time. Donna Sumner said, thank you, Mrs. Jarvis, for putting up with our mischievous class. We all turned out well despite it all. We appreciate the high caliber of education and the strict discipline which we now pass to ours. Don MacDonald, it is wonderful to see you and hear you, Mrs. Jarvis. Thanks for the role you played in my life and for the discipline we learned at BHS. We all did eventually appreciate that discipline and BHS values. Janice Innes, thank you, Mrs. Jarvis, for instilling your values in us as headmistress and girl guides.
Marvelous. Isn't that great? It is wonderful to have all those comments. It's wonderful. Wonderful to hear all the names of girls who have been able to write and send me greetings and comments. Thank you, girls. Thank you, everyone. It's marvelous.
Let's take a break.
Yes, I'm so gratified and proud.